clueless, cynical, worthless product. It doesn't matter if they're aware of how bad it was or not. It was still in the first theatrical cut of the film, and we cannot let them forget that they have to be held accountable.
Focus on not reacting. You must go in your mind to your epic race.
If for no other reason than to point and laugh at their complete buffoonery. And anyway, now the movie makes so much less sense because of these scenes being cut, when the film was clearly written around these creepy moments kind of progressing the story, or at least being part of it and influencing the editing and pacing. So now instead, in the edited version that's on the DVD, the same weird old guy who in the original fondled his nuts, runs his wrinkly hands along the poor dog, this time without specifically showing the fondling, is sort of implied if you have any idea what goes on at dog shows, I guess. But then they have the nerve of blasting Sexy and I Know It by LMFAO, which is almost even more insulting and bizarre.
I'm sexy and I know.
Once you know the entire story of the controversy. So with all that nonsense out the way, what is even left to talk about? Well, unsurprisingly, there's plenty of other garbage. Oh shit. That's kind of really amazing. How did they get the dog to do that? I was just
let's go.
Let's just compare the tone of two completely random different scenes from the film.
He always works alone.
Hey, guys! Oh, my bad. Sorry, I'm late.
So this is the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a dumb film like this. But then compare that with a scene like this.
Contraband entering New York ports comes under NYPD jurisdiction.
I can't even see the health bar of the minions.
But who is this for? So aside from this film being a tonal mess that can't decide if it wants to be cute and kiddie or slightly more adult and edgy.
First, I'll take that catnip you promised. Cell 614.
The constant bad jokes, quips, and puns, and my god are they bad.
You play defense? I play open fence.
And funny man fall over, which
Did
is
I
always
crash
a
it?
hoot. The cherry on top
The
is my
health bars are
absolute
still
favorite bad
scuffed.
media trend, reference humor.
He's a lady and the tramping her.
What?
Of course, movies like this scrape the bottom of the barrel in terms of their content and just chase whatever trend is out there. So it's no surprise that this is how they try to add life and humor to their worthless movie. Just remember, folks, if you can't think of any actual jokes, just make a reference. And fuck it, that'll do.
Now this really is the life of Pi.
This is not a joke. It has about as much comedic substance as an actual reference in the bottom of a Wikipedia article. And that's not to say all reference humor is inherently bad. It just needs to be done right. Of course, the Lego Batman movie and the Lego movie also get references.
What are you, the spinny Lego head guy?
If this guy's an FBI agent, then I'm Lego Batman.
Because Will Arnett also starred in them. And it's nice to be reminded of movies that are actually fun to watch. And wouldn't you much rather be watching those movies? Yes, I would. Please leave this style of comedy to the people who know what they're doing. And Big Mouth.
How
You
do
can
I
probably
get it
tell
to
from
go
the
back to
footage I've
normal?
shown so far that this is a sterile, cheap, putrid looking movie. Every scene is lit like a dentist's
have played
office.
with
The
fate.
production budget was only about $5.5 million according to IMDb, so chances are they planned out the shoot to be as cheap and quick as possible. So clearly they had
Elena, someone burned down your house with you inside. Do you know anyone that would do this?
You ask this woman to come work in our house? You don't even know her.
Sometimes you have to scorch everything to start over.
Are you just gonna pretend nothing happened?
We all have parts that scare us.
A fly just like landed on my face.
At the time, my schizophrenia delusions and hallucinations were full-blown. I thought people were out to get me. I thought most people were against me, including my parents. I knew I needed a change. I learned about injections as a treatment option and decided to give it a try. With my schizophrenia symptoms now under control, I finally gave up fighting against those who were trying to help me, and I began to see my parents as allies in my fight.
A once-monthly injection can help delay another episode. Could a change in treatment plan make the difference?
no time to make it look like an actual movie. Now we're too busy coordinating hundreds of dogs. At points there are shots so bad that it veers on cool cat levels of amateur. I don't think the camera ever moves beyond one axis, hence the flat, lifeless look. Nah, we don't need any energy or excitement in our kids' movie. We have cute dogs. I'll just animate a dog dancing and then dab. I don't know. At one point, they even have the balls to homage Raiders of the Lost Ark, but without the camera work, tension, music, violence, acting, humor, build-up, action, pace, editing, set design, setup, payoff, choreography, or literally anything that makes that scene special. And then we get to the message of this movie, which besides it originally endorsing child grooming, is some confusing message about accepting people for who they are. Max, aka Ludacris, originally judges the show dogs for being vain and petty, but then learns to appreciate that they work really hard, which means I now respect them. Even though dog shows are kind of infamous for how badly they treat their animals. At least it's anti-animal smuggling. Right? The more you think about this movie, the more dreadful it becomes. It really is good for nothing. Last but not least, we need to talk about how many goddamn dibbies are in this movie. Now, I realize I've never actually explained what a dibby is, despite using the word multiple times in the past without elaboration. Dibby, D-I-B-B-Y, is a word that I came up with to describe the phenomenon of creatures, characters, or things that are used for their cuteness and or comedy to manipulate audiences into liking a product or idea, often with the intended goal of the dibby becoming a worldwide marketing prodigy. For example, the slugs from Flushed Away, the minions from Despicable Me, the raving rabbids, BB-8 Ewoks and the Porgs from Star Wars, the aliens from Toy Story, Brains and Wheelie from Transformers, the rabbits from Curse of the Were-Rabbit, Nibbler from Futurama, Olaf from Frozen, Pikachu from Pokemon, Wall-E, you get the idea. And it doesn't necessarily have to be restricted to fiction either. My corgi, Argy, is a damn dibby himself. Red pandas are pretty dibbyish. The 1965 B&W Isetta is an example of an inanimate object that is a dibby. And now that I think about it, Danny DeVito is a bit of a goddamn dibby too. So how does this idea relate to show dogs? Well, dogs are the real-life incarnation of what I consider to be true dibbies. The ultimate dibbies, in a way. With breeds like pugs, chihuahuas, French bulldogs, and whatever the hell this completely ridiculous dibby right here is, being available as extremely valuable pets because of their popularity, it's not surprising that a piece of trash movie like Show Dogs would attempt to harness the true might of the dibby, but without respecting their power. I have to say that they may have gone too far on the dibby front this time, with the movie having annoying CG dibby pigeons, a dibby pug, whatever this dibby is, the panda dibby, and the countless breeds of dibby dogs in the background of multiple shots. This is enough dibby to fill an entire franchise spanning multiple series, let alone one movie. I think it's safe to say that it's complete goddamn dibby overload.
Oh, buddy.
Show Dogs is a rare breed of bad movie, with not one element, aside from the mere act of featuring so many cute dogs, being of any semblance of quality. Tell me why a movie as lazy and cynical as this deserves anyone's attention, other than to point and laugh at how pathetic it is, when we live in a world where we are so spoiled that we can see endless pictures and videos of the cutest dogs in existence for free, whenever we want. These moronic movies barely had a place back when they were popular in the early noughties, let alone in 2018. Then add on top the hilariously out of touch and inappropriate subject matter and the controversy surrounding it, and I have to say it's just kind of immensely embarrassing, really. Everyone can appreciate a cute dog. They are so ubiquitous at this point that we don't even question the fact that they're plastered on the paper we literally wipe our asses with. I suppose this movie can be funny at times because of how terrible it is.
Here we go again.
Holy shit. Which is more than what can be said about some of the other movies in this series. But as far as the ranking goes, I'd put it in between Woody Woodpecker and the Oogie Loves. The Oogie Loves being worse. The link to the full search for the worst list is in the description. As far as genuinely good movies about dogs go, I'd recommend 2018's Isle of Dogs by Wes Anderson. Or if you're in the mood for something more depressing and crushing and sad, I'd say check out Amores Perros in the year 2000, if you're not too faint of heart. Thank you all for watching, and for the love of God, don't feel like you need to hound me for my use of puns. I swear the reign of terrier will end soon. This has already been dog grading enough. Look, I'll give a large Dalmatian to charity for every bad pun I've made. Man, this is rough. I'm ending it now.
Here we go again.
Your maximum refund for just $25? Now that's what we call a win. No hidden fees, no gimmicks, no surprises. File your taxes for one amazing flat rate with 1040.com.
That didn't hit. Bro, I'll keep missing spells at you all game, I don't care.
Upwork has the world's largest network of proven independent professionals. It's like having a go-to graphic designer right here. Oh, I like the green one.
Thanks.
I like the blue. A video editor in here.
Wait, I need that.
Hey. And a social media strategist. Available for
Hey,
6 days or 6 months. When you need in-demand talent on demand, Upwork is how.
I should let it send.
Left Behind is an insulting, ridiculous mess that makes me want to punch all of you listening in the face. The plot sounds amazing. A small group of survivors are left behind after millions of people suddenly vanish and the world is plunged into chaos and destruction. Let alone that Nicolas Cage is our handsome leading man here. But when the first review on IMDb is headlined with 1 star, I want my money back, you have to wonder just what went wrong here. Turns out this movie is a remake of a film which was based on a book of the same name from the year 2000, except the movie is added after Left Behind. And that one starred Kirk Cameron. Yes, Kirk Cameron, the alien. I think if you've been following the search for the worst for a while now, you can probably guess where this is going. Kirk Cameron likes to star in Christian propaganda, basically. And that's what this film effectively is. Terrible, awful Christian propaganda. Except instead of an alien being the main character, it's a crazy, bird-looking man who always looks confused as to where he actually is. So it turns out Nicolas Cage decided to do this movie because his brother is a pastor and said he should be in it, because it would be great for, you know, the Christians and whatnot. It also helps that he was paid $3 million for 10 days of work. That's $300,000 a day. Wow. I'm going to explain to you why this film sucks now. No time is wasted as the film opens with one of the main characters being established as coming home from somewhere. You know what, to make this easier, I'm going to reference every character in terms of how they're related to Nicolas Cage in this movie. So this blonde woman is Nicolas Cage's daughter. She's informed by Nicolas Cage's wife that Nicolas Cage can't make it to Nicolas Cage's surprise birthday party because he's working. Be prepared to hear Nicolas Cage dozens of times in this video until I get bored and give up. Wow, I wonder if Nicolas Cage was actually there for that totally not Photoshopped family portrait. Some famous journalist shows up who's the love interest for Nicolas Cage's daughter, kind of, sort of, but not really, a little bit. I don't know. He signs a bunch of autographs and I'm left wondering how weird and dated this situation seems. Since when does anyone, like, recognize a journalist? An investigative journalist? Like, what?
Investigative journalist. Remember?
Some crazy woman asks if he reads the Bible. Then when he says no, she quotes the Bible at him.
Well, Matthew 24 verse 7 says that there shall be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in divers places.
I only say she's crazy because this is a very strange question to ask somebody out of the blue. Nicolas Cage's daughter butts in with a completely reasonable retort to the religious scripture, and they have an edgy little argument about why God is real or not real.
Honey, God knows everything. So then why doesn't he do something?
Obviously, this is supposed to be the moment where we all gasp and say, "You dumb bitch, how dare you say that about God? I damn you to hell unless you think what I think." But I expect most people, that's including rational Christians, will not be victim to the narrative this film is trying to push onto its audience. Because it's stupid and incredibly ham-fisted.
Sorry to interrupt.
Finally, Nicolas Cage shows up in a suitably slimy scene where he slips off his wedding ring so he can go flirt with his hot air hostess. His character's name is Rayford Steele. What is he, a G.I. Joe? Back to journalist who totally wants to pound Nicolas Cage's daughter. He describes the religious lady she just had a debate with as being nutty.
Nutty lady.
And she explains that her mum is so religious that she thinks she's wacko.
I've decided to go with wacko.
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 Again, setting up everyone for the "see, I told you you should be a Christian" moment.
Oh, swing.
Subtlety and Nicolas Cage are two words that don't belong in the same sentence, and it's pretty wonderful. For some reason, Nicolas Cage acknowledges the journalist by name,
You're Cameron Williams. Holy cow.
And I have no idea why. I guess because he's so famous and that he's a main character in the story. I don't know why they make such a big deal out of everyone recognizing him, because I mean, the fact that he's a journalist isn't exactly that important to the story. I guess it's either because that's what he was in the book, or because it's the only excuse they could think of for him having a DSLR camera later in the plane sequences.
How's school?
It's good.
The entire first sequence is just scene after scene of the script purposefully making fun of Christians for being crazy. It's all very silly, heavy-handed, cheesy, flat, and most of all,
Going my way.
boring. Unless Nicolas Cage is there, he is a darling. The journalist and Cage's daughter part ways so we can get onto the plane heading to London. It's being piloted by Nicolas Cage. Did I mention that Nicolas Cage is in this movie? The film really struggles to come up with reasons for characters to talk to each other and interact. Like when the journalist man sits down on the plane, this guy asks him if he got Nicolas Cage's daughter's number, despite him never meeting him before and explaining that he was watching them and saw what they were doing. Like a creepy weirdo. And he just responds as if that's like a normal thing. Hey, I was spying on you.
Only as a thank you, though, for hooking your brother up with first class.
Huh?
I know you. Look, George. It's Frank Sinatra.
What's that?
It's Frank. Oh!
If I'm going to give credit anywhere, it's that if these ridiculous Christian movies are good at anything, it's being horribly unfunny. Take note of this guy who's very clearly a Muslim. He'll be important later. There's also this guy who's a character actor you'll probably recognize from movies like Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know what the correct nomenclature for people of his size is anymore, so I'm just going to call him Mini-Me. I'm sure that won't offend anyone. I've never even seen Austin Powers. The plane finally takes off and we're still waiting for people to be left behind. And then we all yawn because where's the apocalypse already? I want death and destruction. I was promised death, chaos, and destruction, goddammit. Nicolas Cage's daughter arrives home and is greeted by her much younger brother, who she has a gift for.
The brand new baseball glove that I've been asking for. No way!
We see our first Bible because remember to be a Christian, everybody. There's a bizarre scene back on the plane where these two characters we've never been introduced to before have a conversation about how a plane is secretly being invented by the Defense Department that can fly 300 passengers from New York to London in 6 minutes. The Asian guy then says it's probably been reverse engineered from alien technology.
Probably something from Area 51.
Yeah.
Scotch, please.
This is only loosely mentioned here to be funny and also so it can be referenced again later and be equally unfunny. I don't have much else to say except, why was this in the movie? I think it was supposed to be really funny and wacky, but I just find it mostly confusing. You could take this scene out of the movie and absolutely nothing would change at all. There's some tension between Nicolas Cage's wife, who's religious, and the atheist Nicolas Cage's daughter. I've made this so needlessly confusing. And then she leaves in a huff. Mini-Me has a go at the Muslim, who kindly offers him some help with his luggage. Then he has a conversation with the kid sitting opposite him about American football.
Your dad plays ball on TV?
Go Jets!
I'm just as confused as you are. I'm relatively sure all of these random scenes of passengers in the plane are the dictionary definition of filler. I really don't think this film would have enough content without these scenes to actually be classed as a movie. It would be like 25 minutes long. Nick Cage's daughter takes her brother to the mall, and after one more conversation about why their mum is crazy for being religious,
Do you think Mom's crazy?
it finally happens. 30 minutes in and everyone who's not a devout Christian is left behind. There's an entertaining few minutes where everyone goes crazy because all the Christians disappeared, and for some reason a bunch of children's clothing just kind of falls from the sky or something. It's never really explained. Of course, at this point in the movie, we're not supposed to know that it was just the Christians who were taken away, but it's pretty flipping obvious. Wait, why did I just filter myself? This isn't a kid's show. You'd have to be a blind, retarded, fucking indoctrinated hyper-Christian to not notice this. Too far? While Nicolas Cage was out of the cockpit chilling with the passengers, the co-pilot was beamed up to heaven so the plane starts to plummet. Why the pilot would leave the cabin, I have no idea. Luckily, Nicolas Cage saves the day because he's an epic hero. So now is really when the film either becomes even more unsufferable or 20 times more entertaining to you because it's just so so stupid. This material has such little faith in the human race that after all worthy Christians are miraculously beamed off Earth, it immediately descends into utter chaos. Murder, shoplifting, anger, rage. Within seconds, society seems to be in complete ruin. Now, I know there are a lot of Christians in the world. I believe they make up just under a third of the entire population of planet Earth. But there would still be, you know, like 2/3 of the planet left, if not more, because in this universe only the worthy Christians seem to have been taken away. How that is decided by God we'll discuss later. I'd like to think that our first reaction to this happening in the real world wouldn't be to immediately murder each other and steal TVs from shops, but maybe that's just me being too optimistic. Anyway, the journalist pulls out his camera and starts documenting this crazy event because they somewhat understandably think it has only happened to them on this one plane. But for some reason, a group of angry passengers tries to storm their way into the pilot's cabin, even though I'm not sure how he would know anything more than any of them. He was just flying the fucking plane. Cage flips down the oxygen masks and says everyone needs to sit down through the intercom. And they just kind of do it. Let's quickly talk about the way this film is edited. You've probably noticed that the two different storylines seem to be shown to us at completely random times. Usually you'd hope that when you have two different stories going on simultaneously, you'd ideally either hope for some kind of link where changes in one story affect the other, or at the very minimum a type of pacing that constantly leaves you on a mini cliffhanger as each scene ends to build momentum and eventually ends with some kind of payoff. Obviously the two stories are going to intersect at some point in this movie, but when that is only in service to the clumsy and awkward script, as opposed to making sense naturally in the world of this movie. So because this film has no idea what it's doing, you end up with random scenes like the one earlier about the secret government projects that are nothing but pointless filler that adds nothing to the greater narrative. Or like this scene where we're at now, where a small plane crashes near Nicolas Cage's daughter. Apart from being some mindless action or a representation of the spectacle of this event, it really has no point, and within seconds we're back on the plane. I don't know about you, but it always bugs me in movies when they have these fake UIs for phones or computers. Like, what phone in the whole universe even looks like that? I realize it's probably because they want to avoid any potential legal problems with Apple or
last
Google,
game,
but it's
my
a nitpick
computer
that always
crashed,
bugs me nevertheless.
which is why I was
Also,
screwing
make
with
sure you remember that
settings.
there is no...
Which is why I was screwing with settings. And, I was worried I would get demoted because I was at 0 LP, but I guess I didn't. They probably reported me for AFK though. So we'll see if we get anything bad for that. It was weird. It was like, we were in game for like 25 minutes, and then I was fighting a Zoe, and then it just froze like the whole computer. It was really weird. I don't know why I would do that. But there's a perfect game with Vel'Koz. I got to see how much damage I could do to a Jinx if I just hit my full combo. I didn't even need ult for it. So Vel's really strong. I would recommend. I've tried playing TF before, but I can never get rolling. I think he's just too weak early for me. I prefer champs like Veigar, or, you know, someone that's really a full caster. He's kind of a auto-attacking ranged mage, which I don't know. I just can't do anything with. But thanks for watching, guys. See you.